How's going, guys? Welcome to the channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto was the immortal god sage in the Mass Effect and got harem with FemShep, Part 2. Huge shout out to Kuro Tamashi for this story. If you wants to see awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get into the video. The next day, on the Normandy. Another day had come, and Shepard was still sleeping. But not for long, since she heard the sound of her bathroom's shower, along with the voice of a person who was humming and whistling a song. With a sigh of annoyance, she opened her eyes. Rubbing them, she got out of her bed. She walked to her shower, and once there she recognized a blonde hair as the owner was soaping his body. Shepard could not say anything because the person spoke before she could. "Oh, good morning, Commander Shepard. I hope you don't mind that I use your bathroom." After that, Naruto continued whistling as he hummed another song. Shepard sighed at this and replied, "Would it change anything if I'm angry?" she asked just as the bathroom door opened, giving way to Naruto with a towel around his waist and another towel in his hand as he dried his hair. "Well, probably not. But at least, I would know not to do something like this the next time," Naruto replied as he stopped drying his hair, only to realize that Shepard was examining him up and down. Naruto smiled and added, "Hee, based on what I see I think there won't be any problem." Shepard at that shook her head as a flush of embarrassment appeared on her face for what she had done. "I don't mind, but at least you could tell me when you plan to use my bathroom or come to my cabin," Shepard replied, heading to her closet where she kept her armor to put it on, leaving her helmet on her bed. Then she turned around and saw Naruto sitting on her couch with the clothes that he wore when boarded the ship. That certainly caught Shepard's attention. "How do you do that?" she asked, sitting next to him on the couch. "Do what, Commander?" Naruto asked with a relaxed look. "Change your clothes. I saw you doing it on Omega, and I think you did it again since I didn't see you bringing clothes with you," she replied. Naruto nodded and replied, "When I mastered the yin and yang elements, I was able to transform any of my thoughts in reality. I can do things like this." Naruto then paused as a red flame appeared in the palm of his right hand. After a few moments, the flame dissipated, revealing a small yellow bird, surprising Shepard greatly. After Naruto had created the bird, it shook its head and fluttered before settling down on Naruto's right shoulder, as he continued, "Or things a little more complicated as the people you saw on my planet?" Shepard could not help asking, "Anything? Can you create anything based on your imagination?" Naruto nodded and replied, "Yes, if I wanted I could replicate the Normandy. But doing something like that is not as simple as creating a small animal or other people. It would cost me a bit of time because I would have to use more chakra due to the size and the number of objects inside the ship. I would say something like 30 minutes. Naruto stated as if it were nothing. Shepard was a bit confused about the chakra because she did not understand how it worked. It was very different from the biotic powers that she used. Although the last thing she heard made her sweat drop. That still was ridiculously fast for creating a ship out of nowhere. Therefore, she shook her head, putting away that thought. "That certainly is surprising. If I hadn't seen you doing all that you did in that vision, then I would have believed that you were crazy," she stated with a smile at the end. Naruto smiled back, but then put on a serious face. "Now, Commander, there is another reason I came to your cabin. It has to do with what my clone could detect yesterday in you, and what you said before it disappeared. Would you like to talk about it? Or do you want to let it pass?" Upon hearing this, Shepard also turned serious. "No, I don't want to let it pass. I'm not one to run away from their problems, so if you don't mind, I would like to address that point," she replied. Naruto nodded and then looked at the bird, making it disappear. "All right, Commander. Tell me what it is that you think you feel so that I can give a meaning to your emotions. I may look very young, but trust me when I say that I have more than enough experience in human behavior." Shepard nodded and said what she was feeling. Shepard told Naruto bluntly that she thought she was in love with him, but at the same time, Shepard felt confused because she thought it was just admiration. Shepard also said what she felt when she was near him, about that intangible aura that she could feel in some way. All this and more Shepard told him, and once she finished with her narration, Shepard realized that Naruto had stood up from the sofa and had turned away. Commander, forget about these feelings. I'm sorry, but I will repeat it. I can't reciprocate those feelings. I concluded that you are in love with me. But with much regret, I'm sorry to say that nothing can happen between us, Naruto stated without turning around. That gave Shepard a feeling of discomfort, so she stood up and walked to Naruto's position to stand before him. Why? Is it because you think I care about how old you are? I don't mind that at all. I know this is very sudden. Hell, we barely know each other. It's illogical that something like this could happen. But it's something that just happened. Don't get me wrong, I don't want you to feel the same way instantly. Maybe with time. Shepard replied, looking at Naruto directly into his eyes. Naruto smiled slightly at that, as something similar had happened to him and one of his wives in the past. Nevertheless, Naruto stopped thinking about it, since remembering those good days brought him a feeling of sadness. Again, he put on his grave expression and continued. Sorry, but it can't be. With that said, Naruto began walking out of the room only to hear Shepard speaking again. And why did you sleep with Arya? I think you're a hypocrite, Shepard stated with a straight face. Naruto turned around before answering. Don't confuse the situation, Commander. That was just sex without commitment. I will no longer commit to serious relationships. I'm sorry. Again, he turned around. Why? Shepard asked, wanting to know the answer. At the question, Naruto sighed but decided to respond to the question. Maybe this way Shepard could understand the reason for his words. He approached Shepard to look her into her eyes, and Shepard returned the gaze. Commander, what would you do if you were in my situation? What would you do if you saw all your loved ones dying before your eyes helplessly, even if you have the power to save them? If you're unable to save them by factors that are beyond your power, and watch them dying without mercy? Commander, it was very hard for me seeing them dying. To my people, to my friends, to my wives, and the hardest of all, seeing my sons dying, to my true children. I couldn't do anything. And that's why I don't want to take the risk. I don't ever want to lose anything anymore, and while the Reapers still exist, there is still the risk that I can lose everything again. That's why I'm here to kill them and to protect you only. That's the reason, Commander. Naruto replied, looking at Shepard, who had lowered her head at Naruto's words. Maybe she would not have been able to bear it, and for that reason, she now felt more admiration for Naruto. That about his wives caught her eye though. Nonetheless, she would not ask him about it, since she could understand that Naruto would not like to talk about them or his children. Most likely, because it would make him feel sad. Nevertheless, Shepard wanted to help him somehow. She could somehow feel a great sadness that Naruto kept inside, and that feeling was something that did not fit in Naruto. Even though Shepard still did not know him very well, from what she had seen of him so far, Shepard concluded that Naruto was not a sad or pessimistic person. But even knowing that she had nothing to say, Shepard just kept her head down. She did not know how to answer since she could not put herself in his shoes. They both were from entirely different worlds. Since Naruto heard nothing more from Shepard, he turned around to try to leave the room. But this time, he heard another voice. Commander Shepard, the elusive man requests your presence in the communications room. Yours too, Naruto-san, Itachi informed through the intercom. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the way that Itachi addressed to him. Nevertheless, he did not pay much attention since he was sure that she had analyzed the Japanese customs. Many on the ship had already said that he spoke the same language as the Japanese, so most likely that country used the same honorifics. But what drew his attention was the person who had called him. Maybe he could take this opportunity to leave him a very clear message. Shepard also heard what Itachi said. Therefore, she shook her head and looked at Naruto. Shall we? She asked. Naruto looked at her and nodded, and after a few seconds, the two left Shepard's cabin. Kurama had heard all that Naruto had told Shepard, so he spoke while watching Naruto leaving the room. I think you're wrong. Naruto at this voice sighed mentally. Please, Kurama, I'm not in the mood for your sermons. Kurama shook his head and answered. Sorry, but you're my best friend. Well, my only one friend and I can't help it. Naruto, stop blaming yourself for what happened back then. Look, I know that I shouldn't get into your personal life, but why don't you give this woman a chance? She's the best of the best that you could find over here. Redo your life. You entertained me a lot yesterday, but I want you to stop being so depressed all the time. I want you to be happy again, Naruto. And just freaking every woman that you see won't make you happy. I know, my friend, and I appreciate your concern. But I'm scared. I don't want to take the risk. I don't want to lose anyone close to me again, Naruto replied. That's a goddamn excuse. Damn, you are now the most powerful being in this universe. Sure, it's been quite some time since the last time we have seen each other. But the last time I saw you getting angry, you kicked ass, and that was centuries ago. Now you surely can kick even more asses, so don't use cheap excuses. Live your life, not necessarily with this woman, but at least try to be happy. All your friends would have wanted that for you. Think about it, Naruto. And after that, Kurama cut connection with Naruto. Naruto had always listened to Kurama's advice before, so he would think about it. Nonetheless, that did not mean that it would be quick. Nonetheless, he would have to do it later, because right now, they were about to arrive at the deck number 2. When the elevator's door opened, they went directly to the communications room. Before arriving at the room, Shepard realized that Geras was near the door leaning back on the wall with crossed arms. Geras did not find it strange that they were coming together since he sensed that they would talk with the leader of Cerberus. Shepard, you're finally awake, Geras said, smiling. Shepard returned it and asked, standing before Geras. Yes, I was exhausted from all that happened yesterday. By the way, how do you feel? At this, Geras looked at Naruto, who seemed to have a lost gaze on his face, but Geras looked back at Shepard. I've never felt better before. The doctor already told me what your friend did. He's certainly quite interesting, plus she also said something about his history. It's surprising that you have a demigod on your crew, Geras replied. Shepard chuckled and replied, Yes, he's indeed interesting. And that you haven't yet seen him doing all the things that I saw him doing. Then she looked at Naruto, and she also noticed his lost gaze. However, she did not pay much attention to it since she thought it was just another oddity of him. By the way, don't call him that. He doesn't like that people call him in that way. He says that he might go insane if people start calling him that. Anyway, I'm happy that you are okay. You'll have to be at your full potential to kick some asses in the next mission that you're on. Geras nodded and added, Don't doubt it, but I'll stop taking up your time. I'm sure your boss has called you, and that's why you came here. Geras, the elusive man isn't my boss. We're just cooperating because he's the only one who wants to investigate the Reapers. I don't work for him, Shepard replied, a little offended by Geras' words. Geras corrected himself. I didn't want to offend you, Shepard. I only assumed things, but it's good to know that we aren't working for Cerberus and that you're still in charge. Now I'll get out of your way. If you need me, I'll be in the main battery room calibrating the Normandy's guns. Until later. After that, Geras walked to the elevator before going to the crew deck. After Geras had left that place, Shepard turned around to look at Naruto, who still had a lost expression on his face, which she found odd. Hey, are you okay? Shepard asked, waving her hands in front of Naruto's face. Naruto, upon seeing this, came out of his state and answered, Yeah, sorry. I was talking to my tenant. Anyway, let's hear what this man has to say. Shepard was not very surprised about the fact that Naruto could talk to that fox. After all, she had seen him absorbing him. So she had concluded a while ago that the beast was now inside of him. After hearing the last thing that Naruto had said, Shepard nodded and walked into the communications room. Once inside, the room lights turned off while the room table went down until the top was on the floor. The top had a glass, and Shepard and Naruto stood there. Instantly both were surrounded by a dome of light, which projected them to where the elusive man was, in his typical position and smoking a cigarette. Naruto and Shepard also saw him projected, and the elusive man, when seeing both of them, decided to speak. Shepard, good job acquiring Archangel. I have heard that there were some problems, but the important thing is that the mission was a success. As always, you know how to get the job done, The elusive man eulogized, looking at Shepard. There were some complications, but nothing serious. Now tell me why you have called us here. I'm quite sure it has nothing to do with my recent mission. Shepard replied with a serious look. The elusive man chuckled as he took a drag on his cigarette before expelling the smoke. Very perceptive as always, Shepard. You're right, that wasn't the reason I've called you here, there's something else. Miranda was kind enough to fill me in on the situation about a new crew member of yours that is capable of unbelievable feats. The elusive man replied as he moved a little in his seat. Shepard clenched her fists. She already knew what the elusive man meant and had a guess where he was heading. She stealthily looked at Naruto, and she saw that he had his arms crossed and eyes closed. He then opened them and looked directly at the elusive man, who, upon realizing that Naruto was staring at him, stared back. So it's you. I was expecting someone a little more stunning due to the descriptions that Miranda gave of your skills. Naruto squinted. I hope you're quick with your words because I don't like wasting my time with guys like you, Naruto stated with a solemn face. The elusive man asked as he put a mockingly confused face. Like me? What kind of man am I according to you? He asked. Naruto just stared at him but remained silent. The elusive man, upon seeing this, smiled arrogantly and continued. Even though you are not what I expected, I have a feeling that everything that Miranda said is true. So I have a proposal that might interest you, the elusive man said, looking at Naruto. I'm not interested, Naruto answered. You haven't even heard what my offer is. How can you refuse if you don't listen what I want to say first? However, the elusive man could not finish because Naruto interrupted him. Listen very well, you're starting to stretch my patience. I can be very patient, but when I'm in front of people like you, who think that are superior and look down on others just because they are different, I can't help but be furious, so I'm leaving. I don't want to hear anything that comes out from your mouth, Naruto stated with a firm voice. The elusive man chuckled as he watched Naruto leaving the room. Nonetheless, the elusive man said one last thing that he thought that might help. I just want you to know that your actions could affect the commander. The elusive man then saw that Naruto stopped, and the next thing he saw left him baffled. He saw Naruto distorting as if a swirl was absorbing him. After that, Naruto had disappeared, which confused the elusive man. Shepard knew what Naruto did, but not why, or so it was until she saw something that made her smile and chuckle. The elusive man noticed it, and when he was about to ask Shepard where Naruto went, he heard a voice behind him as he felt a hand on his back. The Harem mark never disappears, Naruto stated in a threatening tone, and the elusive man at the voice instantly put himself on alert. Nevertheless, he could not do nothing because he floated against his will, and after a moment, he felt a hand squeezing his neck tightly. The elusive man was not stupid, and he quickly concluded that he was now out of his depth. Besides that, Naruto was looking at him with a very cold gaze, and those purple eyes that conveyed a sense of death didn't help him to stop feeling nervous. Listen to me, you bastard. I don't like killing others, but don't think that I won't finish off garbage like you. Nothing would please me more than you give me one more reason to crush your head, and I'll gladly do it. Naruto then paused for a moment as he watched the elusive man clawing his hands in an attempt to break free. But even though he tried, he could not do it, and Naruto just squeezed harder. Now listen to my warning. If you say something as stupid as you did earlier, I will kill you. If you try to interfere with the commander's goal to unite her galaxy, I will make sure to end you and all of your organization. So I'm warning you. No matter where you are, no matter where you hide, if you try it, I will look for you, I will find you, and I will kill you. Did you hear me? Naruto asked in a very threatening tone that chilled the blood of the elusive man, who upon hearing this nodded as he could in Naruto's grasp. Naruto instantly released him, and the elusive man fell to his knees as he coughed loudly and tried to recover the lost oxygen. Naruto bent down, and the elusive man could only raise his head slightly. Listen very well. From now on, you will cooperate with the commander and your galaxy. You will leave aside those twisted ideas that you have. You will use all your resources to help the galaxy to stop the Reapers. Did you hear me, Jack Harper? The elusive man's eyes widened in shock when hearing the latter, so he raised his head to look at Naruto as he continued rubbing his neck due to the burning. How do you know my name? The elusive man could only ask, but at the end, he nodded to Naruto's question. That's none of your business. You just have to know that if you try anything against the commander's goal, then I will rip your head off, and don't think that hiding can save you. I already told you, the Harem mark never disappears. Now I'm leaving, and the next time you need me, I hope it's for something of utmost importance, and not just nonsense to feed your twisted ego. After Naruto had made his point of view clear, he had entered into his kamui and appeared right next to Shepherd, who was looking at him with wide eyes. Wow! That was surprising and funny! Ha! Shepherd laughed looking at Naruto, but she just saw him leaving the room with a frown and without saying a word. That worried her a bit, so she looked back at the elusive man and added, Well, Jack. See you later. I have to continue the mission. She paused for a moment to smile. By the way, looks like you wet your pants. Go and change them. Until next time, Jack. After that, she left the room, but not without letting out a giggle at the end. Meanwhile, the one now known as Jack Harper stood up slowly from the floor. Once he did it, he shook his suit. Then he walked to his chair and sat down, pulling out another cigarette to light it with difficulty since his hands were shaking uncontrollably. However, when he managed to lit his cigarette, he took a drag before releasing the smoke, smiling at the end. That man. One way or another, I must get him on my side. With someone like him, I have no doubt that we humans would be the dominant species. I must do it, but how will I do it without ending up death? Jack spoke, still unable to control his shaking hands, but he could not help smiling. Now he would have to investigate what this Harem thing was, in addition to finding a way to remove it from his body, as he had felt something entering his body when Naruto had touched him. Therefore, he concluded that it was something to track him down. But for now, he would just have to support Shepherd and not do anything stupid because he had no doubt that Naruto would kill him if he came to break his word. After that, he rose from his seat to walk to another direction, more specifically, to his cabin to take a shower and think. To think about Naruto and that powerful feeling he had felt when he stood before him, it was just terrifying, but magnificent at the same time. Back on the Normandy, Shepherd walked towards where Naruto went. When she spotted him, Shepherd almost called him. However, she saw him immersing into the floor, toward the hangar of the ship. She sighed and went to the elevator, and once inside, she went to the hangar. Once the elevator door opened, she walked through the hangar. Until after a moment, she saw Naruto sitting on the floor with crossed legs and closed eyes. She did the same, and once she sat in front of him, Shepherd waited for him to say something. Nevertheless, after a few minutes he had said nothing. He did not even move an inch, so she decided to speak. Sorry for what happened up there. I didn't believe that the elusive man would make you that angry. By the way, how did you know where he was? She asked interestedly. Naruto opened one eye and chuckled. Don't worry, Commander. I no longer feel angry. I was at that time, but not anymore. But that doesn't mean that I won't kill that man if he does something that could affect your goals, Naruto replied. Shepherd nodded at this, and Naruto continued. Regarding your other question. As long as you are in this universe, I'm able to go there. I just need to know how the place looks like. And I knew it because that woman Miranda was on several occasions in that location with the elusive man. It wasn't difficult to know where he was hiding, Naruto replied. Are you not angry with Miranda? I'll talk to her about it later, Shepherd said. Naruto shook his head and answered. No, don't worry about it. That woman will find out by herself the real intentions of Jack Harper. She's a good woman, she only joined the wrong side. But I'm sure that sooner or later she'll realize that Cerberus isn't the place where she belongs to. Shepherd nodded but then asked, How did you know his name? Naruto chuckled and replied, Don't doubt my ability to read minds, Commander. When I was near him, I knew everything about him. I wanted to kill him right there, but I didn't do it because he's helping you right now. That man won't do any good to your galaxy. But I took care to keep him in line for now. If he is stupid enough to try something against you, then I won't hesitate to kill him. But I think that he won't do it. He's a smart man, after all. Shepard nodded. You know, you can call me Shepard. You don't need to call me always by my rank. Very well, then I'll call you in that way from now on, Shepard. By the way, I need to take you somewhere else. I need to introduce you to someone. Naruto spoke, seeing Shepard nodding. After Naruto had seen the nod, he stood up and looked at Shepard to see that she had stood up as well. He smiled slightly before materializing a katana in his right hand, and without words, Naruto cut off half of his left arm. Shepard's eyes widened in concern, even more because she saw that the blood began to sprout from Naruto's arm, who didn't flinch even a bit. What are you doing?" Shepard exclaimed as she approached Naruto to try to give him her Medigel. Nonetheless, she could not do it because Naruto made a stop sign with his other hand as he bent down to leak his blood on the ship's floor. He did that for a few minutes, and Shepard could not help feeling increasingly concerned. Even though Naruto had said he was immortal, seeing him losing that amount of blood made her doubt. Then she saw that Naruto returned to his feet, and the next thing she saw was that something grew where he had cut his arm. After a few moments only, Naruto had recovered his arm. That amount of blood should be enough to get his attention, Naruto said, clenching his left fist to get used to his new arm. Shepard let out a sigh of relief before looking at Naruto's eyes. Anything I see you doing, you give me the impression that you indeed are a god and not just a mere human. And why the hell did you cut your arm off? Shepard asked, wiping the sweat from her forehead. At least, nothing bad had happened. After what she had seen today, she would stop doubting on Naruto's immortality. Naruto smiled as he chuckled. It was necessary. The being that we are going to see told me that I had to do this when I needed him. Anyway, you will know who he is in a few seconds. By the way, we are about to go to a sacred place. Just remain silent and only speak when I tell you. Don't talk without my permission. Naruto warned with a serious face. Shepard nodded, and Naruto approached Shepard to grab her hand right gently. Shepard said nothing and simply squeezed Naruto's hand, and after a few moments, they both vanished in a puff of smoke. Shepard instantly realized that they were somewhere else. It was a desolate place where the air was minimum and cumbersome. There was an unpleasant smell, the temperature was high, and black clouds that flashed covered the skies. In addition, the ground was of a bluish color, very similar to the color that she had seen when they arrived at Naruto's planet. She then looked to her right, seeing that Naruto was standing beside her, still holding her hand. She smiled, and when she was about to ask where they were, she heard noises. She could hear people crying, screaming, whispering, and many other gloomy sounds. That confused her, so she looked down and saw strange blue creatures underground. It seemed as if they were trying to grab her, but for some reason, Naruto had none of these creatures around him. Shepard, keep silence. If you don't, the lost souls of this place will get into your body. Shinigami-sama created this place to make the most despicable beings from the ends of the universe suffer for eternity. We aren't something natural in this place, so they'll take any advantage to enter into your body and live inside of you, tormenting you for the rest of your life. I don't have that problem since I have permission from Shinigami-sama, so they can't do anything to me. Though I don't understand why he summoned us here and not within his kingdom. He must want us to walk, or most likely, he noticed your presence, and somehow he wants to put you to test. But you already know what to do. If you keep your mouth shut, you'll be safe. Naruto stated. Shepard nodded and mentally asked as they walked. Are we about to see a god? Naruto looked at her and smiled. This woman was quite clever. She realized that he would be reading her mind in case she had questions. Yes, we are about to see a real god. I know you're nervous, but don't feel that way. Shinigami-sama is nice. Well, I think so, Naruto replied. Shepard felt more nervous than before. She was used to standing tall through harrowing situations, but meeting a god was on an entirely different level. It was beyond her comprehension, so she could not help feeling that way. They continued walking through the narrow road that led to the massive castle that they could see at the end. The lost souls continued following Shepard's steps carefully, waiting for any carelessness on her part. The souls could only see Shepherd as a figure that glowed in the darkness. Nonetheless, Naruto was invisible to them. That was the reason they were not trying to follow him. Although they would not have been able to do much even if could. After a few minutes of walking, they arrived in front of the castle. The big door instantly came down while a powerful white light that blinded Shepherd briefly was visible. Instantly all the souls behind Shepherd moved away, and she sighed mentally. Those whispers and moans had her nervous from a while ago. When her eyes got used to the brightness within the castle, Shepherd started walking forward, following Naruto from behind. When they entered, the great door closed again. Inside was completely bright white, and such brilliance was bothering her a bit. She now realized it was a bad decision to have left her helmet on her bed, but she could handle it. They didn't move from their places and just remained standing. Nonetheless, after about 5 minutes, Shepherd knelt down since she started to feel enormous pressure on her shoulders, forcing her to do it. Naruto did it too, but not by the pressure, but rather due to respect. "Shinigami-sama, you honor us with your presence," Naruto said with his head bowed and his right hand on his chest. Shepherd quickly imitated this, but she did not raise her head since she could not do it. "Great sage, you are finally back. I was beginning to think that you would never return." Shepherd heard in a voice that was almost equal to Naruto's, in the sense of the sensations it conveyed, but this was somewhat sinister. "Sorry for the delay, Shinigami-sama. But I was never given the chance. Nevertheless, that changed a few days ago," Naruto replied, still with his head bowed. Shepherd and Naruto then saw 2 bluish feet in front of them, and this time, Naruto looked up, but Shepherd was still unable to move. "And I suppose this human woman next to you has something to do with that. What is it that makes her special?" Shinigami asked, looking at Naruto, who smiled slightly and answered the Shinigami's question without words. "Oh, I see. And I thought that you were just horny, and you wanted to freak her since you have been abstinent for several millennia." "Ha!" The Shinigami laughed loudly. Shepherd blushed with embarrassment at these words, still bowing her head. "Please don't say such things, Shinigami-sama," Naruto added, a bit embarrassed, not for what he said about Shepherd, but because the Shinigami had guessed about his horniness. That, however, was not the reason he accepted helping Shepherd. The Shinigami chuckled but then turned serious. "So does this mean that you're ready to fulfill your mission? Are you sure that you can end them forever?" the Shinigami asked. "Yes, this time, I will be able to achieve it," Naruto did not hesitate to answer. The Shinigami nodded, pleased. "I'll be eagerly awaiting the outcome of this. By the way," he paused and looked at Shepherd. "Stand up, human." Shepherd was finally able to control her body, and she stood up slowly. Once she did, she saw something with red horns, long white hair with a white kimono, his skin was purple, and he was, at least, 3 times taller than she was. If Shepherd was nervous before, now she was even more so, especially due to the strange smile on the Shinigami's face. The Shinigami then approached her before pulling a tanto out of his sleeve, stabbing Shepherd directly into her heart. Shepherd instantly felt a great pain, but she endured it and didn't shout. She just remained silent because Naruto did not allow her to speak yet. She has a great soul. It's sincere and pure, although it has a small dark part. But not as dark as yours when you came here for the first time," the Shinigami said, smiling at Naruto, who was scratching his head in shame. "Hey, but at least I've changed, I think," Naruto replied. Shepherd then felt that the Shinigami removed the weapon from her chest. There was no blood or anything since his tanto was a spiritual weapon and it did not damage Shepherd's body. The Shinigami did that so that he could know what kind of soul she had. After that, Shepherd stopped feeling pain. "What is your name, human?" the Shinigami asked. Shepherd then saw that Naruto gave her a sign to talk. "My name is Shepherd, sir," she replied, saluting. "Shepherd, you know what is about to start, right? You know that even though Naruto is with you, many people will die. Are you ready to endure all this?" the Shinigami asked. "More than ready, sir," Shepherd replied firmly. The Shinigami continued. "Glad to hear it, though I have another question. Would you be upset if Naruto becomes the center of attention in your galaxy? It's something that could happen, though he does not intend to. Shepard chuckled and shook her head. No, I don't think I can get angry about that. And yes, I also believe that will happen. I've noticed that he doesn't do things to get attention. He just does them because he sees these things as something normal. But no, it won't bother me, sir, Shepard replied. Hey, don't talk as if I weren't here, Naruto said with a pout on his face and crossing his arms. Both Shepard and the Shinigami laughed at this, but then they stopped laughing, and the Shinigami looked at Naruto. Naruto, now I'll tell you something that might cheer you up. That caught Naruto's attention, so he just looked at the Shinigami. Well, they are two things. The first one. He then folded his hands, and a metallic door with several kanjis around it appeared behind him. I'll give you the opportunity to enter into my paradise now that you're here for one day. All your friends and loved ones are there. Even though they are not aware of your arrival, they will be once we go there. What do you say? Do you want to see them? I'm sure that they will be happy, and I can feel that you will be too, the Shinigami said. Naruto's heart instantly pumped faster while a smile of bliss crossed his face. Shepard smiled sympathetically. She did not doubt that she would also feel the same way if she could not see her loved ones for so many years and then someone gave her a chance to see them, at least, one more time. Moreover, Naruto hadn't seen them for thousands and thousands of years. Hey, are they all right? Naruto asked while his hands and lips shook with excitement. Yes, they're all okay. Though they were sad when they heard about your mission, and that they would not be able to see you until you completed it. I do not usually keep the whole bodies of the people who come to my paradise, but they were clearly the exception. So, will you enter? The Shinigami asked. Naruto smiled before shaking his head. I'm sorry for rejecting this great offer, but it would be better not to see them, at least not yet. I still have my duties, and if I see them, the chances are that I will no longer want to leave that place. The Shinigami nodded, but then went on to the last point. Okay, the last point. The Shinigami paused to put a serious face. Naruto, we, the gods, have decided that you will be part of us once you finish your mission. You will have your own kingdom and all the benefits of a god, the Shinigami stated. That statement took Naruto and Shepard off guard, much more to the latter, due to obvious reasons. A god? Why did you decide that? Naruto asked. Because we know what you're capable of even though you don't know it. Your power goes far beyond the limits and understanding of living beings. Therefore, we concluded that the most appropriate decision would be that you become one of us once you complete your mission, the Shinigami replied. Naruto, upon hearing this, brought his fingers to his chin while thinking about this possibility. Shepard just looked at him attentively, waiting for him to deny the offer. After a few seconds, Naruto pulled his fingers away from his chin and spoke. Let me think about it, Shinigami-sama. I will give you an answer when everything is over. Shepard mentally sighed at this. At least, that was better than accepting, and the Shinigami nodded. Okay, we will be looking forward to your answer. You two can now return to continue your mission. Shepard and Naruto nodded at this, and Naruto approached Shepard again. And just when he was about to disappear along with her, the Shinigami spoke again. One last thing, Naruto. I'm all ears, Shinigami-sama, Naruto said. Don't be overconfident, you may be very powerful. But someone is still alive, and that someone could complicate things in the not-too-distant future, the Shinigami warned. Someone? Who? Naruto asked, confused. I can't tell you, I would be interfering with the affairs of mortals. I can only tell you not to be overconfident. I'm not allowed to reveal its identity, the Shinigami replied. Naruto nodded and replied. Don't worry, Shinigami-sama. Anyone who gets in the way of my mission, it shall die without mercy, Naruto stated with a serious face. It's good to hear that, and I hope to hear your response when this is over. Oh, and by the way, Naruto, remember not to use the Rinna Tensei. Not even I would be able to take you out of the clutches of the King of Hell if you came to use it. Now you are dismissed. Naruto nodded and disappeared along with Shepard and his Kamioi, and she didn't find anything strange in the Shinigami's last warning since she didn't know what he meant. Once they left, the Shinigami could not help sighing. That person will certainly cause many problems. I just hope it's not as powerful as we think it is. Naruto is Naruto, though, and he will find a way. After that, the Shinigami disappeared. Back to the Normandy, Shepard and Naruto returned to the ship's hangar. Shepard quickly took a deep breath. The entire time they were in that place, she had been nervous. Even more, when Shepard started talking with the god of death. And though she found him friendly, Shepard had felt the same feeling of death when she saw that giant fox appearing in Naruto's world, and that made her feel very uncomfortable. Phew, damn. That was interesting, Shepard said after catching her breath before looking at Naruto, seeing that he was kneeling on the floor while putting a scroll over it. The scroll then began to absorb his blood at a high rate of speed. She did not care about this, so she just waited for Naruto to end what he was doing. Once Naruto finished sealing his blood, he kept his scroll in his suit. Then he stood up and looked at Shepard. You're right, it was kind of interesting. I found out interesting things, Naruto replied. Will you still deny that you're a god? They're about to give you the job, Shepard said with a fake smile. Naruto noticed this, but he returned a real one. Well, technically I'm not one yet. I could be it if I accept the job when this is all over. But who knows, maybe something interesting will happen that could make me reject the position. Only time will tell. After that, Naruto sat on the floor as he stood in a meditation pose. Shepard could not help smiling slightly at these words. Uzumaki Naruto would not escape from her so easily. But won't take any more of your time, Shepard. You can continue with your mission. It has been hardly a minute since we left this place to the kingdom of Shinigami-sama, Naruto stated. I think it was, at least, an hour since we left, Shepard replied confused. Naruto chuckled and replied as he closed his eyes and clasped his hands. The time in that place runs faster compared to here. After you recruit Mort and Solus, where will we go, Shepard? Anyway, I'll train now. Do you really need training? Are you worried about what the Shinigami said? She asked. Naruto shook his head and answered. No, I'm not threatened by that person who is still alive. I don't think it can do me much harm. And I do need training. I was sleeping for about 3,000 years. So I need to get in shape. Anyway, what will we do after recruiting Mort and Solus? Naruto asked again. Shepard nodded when hearing the answer, but then she answered. We may go to the Citadel. Captain Anderson requested my presence there. Maybe we can persuade the council to help us. They must do something. Many humans were sacrificed so that they could survive. It was a good decision to save them, Shepard. You lost strength in your fleet, but that decision increased the trust towards the humans. You may not yet see it that way, but I assure you that that decision will bring you more benefits than consequences in the future. Shepard nodded but then asked. I wondered if you would like the Spectre position. I don't think it'll be hard for you to get it. You would get many benefits and also, you'd be able to talk to the council easily. They are a bunch of arrogant bastards, but if you have the Spectre status, it's more likely that they will hear you, Shepard stated. Naruto raised his right eyebrow as he opened his eyes. Interesting. However, I don't think I can. I haven't done anything to earn that title. But it's not important. As long as you're a Spectre, I don't need to be it, Naruto replied as he closed his eyes again. Shepard shrugged and turned away. Okay, I'll leave you to it. I think I will finish the pending mission on Omega. Then we will go to the Citadel, and there you will try to convince the council to get to work. Maybe you can make them see those visions. Naruto nodded, and after a moment, Shepard walked towards the elevator. Nevertheless, she stopped halfway and turned around to ask. By the way, I've been curious since I saw the vision. What was that object you used? And how did you kill the Reapers on your planet? She asked, approaching again. She decided to take the opportunity to ask about it, not to forget it later. I called it the Apple of Eden. It was a powerful artifact that made the Reapers invade my planet. Also, the artifact allowed me to defeat them. I'll tell that story later, Naruto replied. Shepard, upon hearing this, was quite surprised, and when she was about to ask if he still had it, Naruto continued. But I no longer have it in my possession, as it no longer exists. I will tell you everything someday. But not now. Now you have to continue with your mission, and I will train until we arrive at the Citadel. By the way, don't let anyone interrupt me. Why? She asked. Naruto opened his eyes and answered. I'll be using a lot of energy around my body so that the ship doesn't get destroyed while I train. If anything disturbs my concentration while I train, it's most likely that I would end up destroying the ship by mistake. I'll be training with my foxy friend, and we don't hold back when we fight seriously. Anyway, I'll leave these two clones to stop anyone from interrupting me. You can talk to them if you need anything. After saying that, two shadow clones appeared, which greeted Shepard with a slight bow. Shepard nodded, and after a few seconds she withdrew from the hangar. Now she had to recruit Mordin Solus, and once she did it, then she would leave this system. She still did not feel comfortable with Arya, and for that reason, she wanted to get off this system as soon as possible. Although that distrust was due to other factors. Once she completed her mission, she would talk with Anderson on the Citadel to catch up on everything that had happened while she was dead. Surely, many things had happened, and learning about those things was essential to continue her primary mission. She then called Zaid and Miranda to return to Omega and recruit Mordin. Although Naruto had said she did not need to reprimand Miranda, she would do it regardless. Not because she felt something for Naruto, but because Miranda had disobeyed her orders and jeopardized a crew member. Even though this person would not have been in danger at all, not everyone was Naruto, and endangering other crew members was something that she could not tolerate. After about 30 minutes of preparation, she and her team continued their mission and recruited the Solarian scientists on Omega. On Omega. After Shepard and her team had finished preparing themselves, they had descended the Normandy and continued the mission on Omega. Again, everyone was walking through Omega's entrance corridor. Shepard was ahead, followed by Zaid and Miranda. Upon reaching Omega's entrance gate, Shepard stopped. She turned around to look at Miranda and spoke. Miranda, listen to me because I don't want to repeat it. Shepard began while carrying her hands behind her back as she stood firmly. Miranda nodded and Shepard continued. I won't tolerate any more insubordination coming from you. If you do it again, then I will have no choice but to remove you from the team. Am I clear? Shepard asked with a serious face, though they could not see it because of her helmet. Miranda, upon hearing this, pretended that she did not know what she was talking about, but Shepard explained her the reason. Therefore, Miranda had no choice but to accept Shepard's order, but surprised by the story she heard from Shepard about Naruto putting the elusive man in his place. She would ask the elusive man about it later to see if what Shepard had said was true. And if that were the case, then it would be best for her welfare to stop meddling with Naruto and just continue sending regular reports to her boss. Zaid could only laugh imagining what the elusive man could have felt when Naruto appeared out from nowhere. After that, everyone went to Omega's clinic to seek for Mordin Solus, but for this, they would have to pass over an army of Bloodpack and Blue Sun soldiers that were in that place ready to kill any intruders. Back to the Normandy. In the hangar of the ship, the clones were slightly away observing the original, who was floating with closed eyes, crossed legs, and interlaced fingers while some transparent purple dome barrier surrounded him. Naruto was in a typical meditation pose, although both clones knew that he was not doing that now. The clones were standing guard as the original had requested, but after several minutes of watching him, one of them could not help speaking. Boring, I won't stand here forever. I'm going to explore the ship. Maybe I could talk with the artificial intelligence of the ship on the improvements that the boss wants to implement. After that, I should talk with the crew to know a little more about them. After hearing that, the other clone looked at him and nodded. All right, I'll stay here in case that someone tries to interrupt the boss. With that said, the clone stepped right in front of Naruto. The other clone nodded and headed to ship's elevator. Once inside, the clone said to himself, Let's see how this works. After thinking that, the clone looked on the panel. I see, it's not that complicated. Then he pressed the button that led to the engineering deck. Once he reached the deck, he walked through the hall, carefully looking at each corner to memorize even the smallest scratch he could see. After that, he went into a room. He realized that some of them were blocked, but that hardly mattered him and quietly went through the doors to memorize everything that was inside said rooms. The clone was not doing that because Naruto had said that he could duplicate the Normandy if he memorized everything on the ship, but because he just wanted to know her more. After all, he would be here for a long time. After that, he decided to look at the room where the mass effect core of the ship was. For this, he had to make his way through the typical doors, which opened automatically compared to the ones on Omega. Once he passed by both doors, Naruto could see two people, a woman and a man next to each other, working in their respective stations. Naruto approached quietly, and once he was behind them, he began to look over their shoulders to see what they were doing. He saw them pressing several buttons on their panels, but he could not understand what they were doing, so he decided to speak. What are you guys doing?" the clone asked, touching the man's shoulder. That scared both Donnelly and Daniels, since none of them had noticed that someone had entered their room. "What the hell?" Donnelly shouted while turning around quickly after giving a slight jump when he heard the voice, but in doing so, he saw Naruto, who was looking at his panel. Naruto, when hearing Daniels, looked at her with a smile that showed his teeth, which caused a slight blush on Daniels and a sigh from Kurama. "Oh, excuse me. I'm just a clone. The original one is in a training session with that huge beast that you saw, and with a certain reddish friend of mine. I've decided to explore the ship to get familiar with her and her crew. I hope not being a nuisance and that my presence is not interrupting you." He said all this while directly looking at Daniels. "Not at all," she replied, sighing and blushing a little bit at the end. Donnelly realized that both were staring at each other very intensely, which he found a little weird. So he decided to interrupt. Ahem. He cleared his throat to attract the attention of the clone, who stopped looking at her to look at him. "You said you were a clone? How is that possible?" he asked interestedly. The clone answered. "Oh, it is possible thanks to the chakra. I don't think you guys were in the communications room when I talked about it. But surely you heard it because the AI said that she would transmit my words to those who couldn't be in attendance." Daniel spoke this time. "Yes, we heard it. It's something like the biotic powers, isn't it?" she asked. The clone shook his head. Not really. The chakra is more complex. It allows you to do many more things. The biotic powers, from what I've seen so far, are a bit limited. What I mean is that you can't do as many things as you could do if you had chakra," the clone answered. Donnelly, when hearing the answer, nodded in understanding before continuing. "I see, so..." He paused while changing his expression to a nervous one. "Is it true that you're a survivor? Are the Reapers that terrible?" Donnelly asked, a little nervous about the possible response of the clone. The clone stared at him with a very serious face for several seconds, but eventually he proceeded to answer. "Yes, they are. We had many troubles with only a small part of their total forces when in fact there are millions of them out there, hiding in the darkness of the universe, waiting and analyzing civilizations before attacking them and harvesting them," Naruto replied, slamming his right fist into his left palm, making both Donnelly and Daniels feel afraid by his response. He then continued talking. "But there's one thing they fear, and that's the key to defeating them." The clone continued talking. "What's that?" Daniels asked, taking a step forward. The clone looked at her and replied. "Unity. Unity makes strength, and they fear that. They know very well that when people are united, they can accomplish extraordinary things. We, the shinobi, gave them a war of 7 years, and it was because we were united. We all had one goal in mind. They know that unity is a big problem, and that's why they're so determined to indoctrinate the leaders or the influential people of certain species, to cause division and avoid what they fear so much. That's why I want to help the commander, because she wants to achieve that. And that's what will allow you to win. I'm just a prop, but if everyone manages to unite themselves, then let me tell you that kicking their asses wouldn't be impossible," the clone stated with conviction. Daniels and Donnelly felt relieved at the clone's words. Daniels spoke again, this time with a smile on her face. "Wow. Now I feel much calmer. If what you say is true, then we have to pin our hopes in the commander and you. Now I'm more confident that our mission will be successful." The clone nodded. Of course, failure is not an option for you or me. This time, it will be the end of the Reapers, even if I have to kill them one by one. The clone replied, also smiling. Just then, everyone heard Idi's voice echoing through the intercom. Very well spoken, Naruto-san. My sensors indicate that the crew morale has increased considerably. At this, those who were there looked at the ceiling and the clone decided to speak. Oh, were you transmitting my words? I didn't realize it. The clone said, carrying his fingers to his chin. I thought it would be appropriate. Sorry if this has upset you. I am unable to know it because I cannot analyze you. Idi's voice answered. However, the clone quickly waved his hands. No, it's not a problem. Though I would kindly ask you to stop trying to analyze me. I know you're under the elusive man's control, but I wouldn't like you to send him things that he doesn't need to know. You know what? Tell Jack Harper that I want him to order you to stop trying to analyze me or I will take you out of his control. Please let him know that. The clone said. Edi agreed, and those who were in that room could not help but be amazed at Naruto's statement. Can you really do that or are you just bluffing? Donnelly asked, surprised. The clone looked at him and shrugged. No, I'm not bluffing. I could do it now if I wish it. But right now, I don't think that it is necessary. By the way, Edi, I would like to talk to you on some topics if you don't mind. Whenever you like, Naruto-san. Idi's voice answered, who had transmitted to the crew the most relevant topics that the clone had said. After that, Naruto nodded and looked back at the two before him. Well, it was nice talking to you guys. Keep working, I will continue exploring the ship and meeting the crew. See you around. The clone said goodbye, as well as Donnelly and Daniels, who then saw the clone floating, and surprisingly, passing through the ceiling as if it was not there. The clone did not want to use the elevator anymore. He thought it was faster to do this. After Naruto had left, Donnelly and Daniels looked at each other. A very interesting guy, Donnelly stated as he turned back to his panel. I don't doubt it, Daniels added with a chuckle at the end, turning around to return to her panel to begin installing, with Donnelly's help, the FBA couplings that Shepard had bought on Omega. Returning with the clone, he was already getting through the ceiling, and the place where he appeared was right on the dining table of the ship, scaring those who were around the table eating and talking. When the clone realized of this, he quickly apologized. Forgive me for interrupting you, but I don't want to use the elevator anymore. I find this more practical. The clone said, apologizing as he scratched his head and placed an apologetic smile on his face. Hearing this, the people around the table smiled and then invited Naruto to join them. The clone did not refuse and started talking to those at the table. Once again, the topic of conversation was Naruto and his strange powers, but they also told him that they now felt less nervous thanks to the words they had heard a few moments ago. After that, Naruto said goodbye to go and talk with the cook of the ship, the mess sergeant Gardner. After both had been properly introduced, Naruto stared at him with narrowed eyes, with slightly raised lips and with the fingers of his right hand on his chin. He was like this for a long time, which made Gardner start to look at him strangely. But eventually, the clone decided to talk. So, the clone said while moving closer to the table, making Gardner look at him with a raised eyebrow because of the curious expression of the clone. However, the clone continued. Can you make ramen? Rather, does the ramen exist in this galaxy? The clone asked him with a questioning face, but with a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Gardner somehow could see the desperation in the eyes of the clone, so he could not help but chuckle. Yes, there is, and I know how to prepare it. I'm quite the chef, though I don't look like one, he said as he opened his arms and smiled. Then he continued. But with such limited supplies on hand, I'm sorry to say that it's impossible for me to prepare it, Gardner replied, laughing again when seeing the clone opening his eyes widely. Thanks to Kami. I don't even remember when the last time I ate ramen was. I stink at cooking, I'm capable of burning the water, the clone stated, which made Gardner laugh vigorously at his statement. However, he said nothing as the clone continued speaking, caring little that he was laughing at his culinary skills. So do you only need the ingredients? The clone asked, urging with his hands and head for Gardner to nod. Yes, but you will only get junk on Omega. You'll have to wait until we get to the Citadel, or some other place where you can get supplies, Gardner replied. Screw that. Just tell me what you need, and I'll bring it, the clone replied. Gardner looked at him in confusion, but he nodded and started saying the ingredient list to the clone, who out of nowhere had pulled out a small notebook to write what Gardner was saying. Once he finished saying the list, Gardner was surprised to see Naruto disappearing in his kamui, but only after 10 seconds he reappeared. Instantly, the clone threw many green scrolls on the table, which caused confusion in Gardner and the other crew members who had approached to see. All were puzzled at the number of scrolls that the clone was throwing on the kitchen counter. Hey, don't mess up my workstation, Gardner said, trying to pull the scrolls away. Before he could, the clone stopped him to say, Wait. After that, he grabbed one scroll and charged a bit of chakra in it, and the result was that many boxes, filled with all kinds of ingredients, were released from said scroll. However, everyone saw the clone in shock, moving at a surprising speed and catching the boxes before they could fall on the floor as he placed them one on top of another. I think this would be more than enough for one portion of Naruto Uzumaki style. The clone spoke with a big smile before grabbing another scroll and doing the same thing as first. Gardner and the others were still in shock, but Gardner quickly put that away and decided to stop the clone since he was filling his workplace with boxes. Hey, wait a minute, Gardner said. The clone stopped halfway of stacking another box and asked inclined. What? Gardner instantly pointed at the boxes. All this is a portion? He asked incredulously. The clone instantly nodded and stood up correctly. Of course. You know, I'll be very honest. I'm starving. Although I don't need to eat, the mere thought of eating ramen after so long made my stomach squirm, the clone dramatically said, touching his stomach before squeezing both of his fists close to his face while shaking them. Then he paused and continued. So yes, this is a portion. Though you can save 2 or 3 of those scrolls for the ship reserve. And with that said, Naruto continued stacking. Gardner sighed and spoke. And where the hell did you get all this that fast? He asked, seeing the clone wiping his hands after finishing stacking the boxes of the second scroll. At Gardner's question, the clone raised the index finger of his right hand and hit his forehead with it. Everyone was confused to see this action, so Gardner again asked where he got everything, and Naruto insisted with the gesture. One of those who had approached somehow understood what he meant. Your mind? He asked. The others looked at him before looking back at the clone, who nodded. Yes, anyway. Hey, how long do you think it will take you to have this ready? He asked, not wanting to explain in detail where he got all this. Upon hearing this, Gardner crossed his arms, leaning up against the counter. The lunch time is over. Try again tomorrow morning if I feel like. But I warn you that I have prepared food for this whole week. Therefore, I believe that I will make what you've asked in 8 days. But since you have given me supplies for various dishes, then I could try some other things before doing what you asked. I can't cater to the liking of a single crew member, Gardner stated seriously. The clone was obviously incredulous and disgusted at his words. But if I brought everything you needed, the clone protested, unhappy by Gardner's words, who crossed his arms and stated, My kitchen, my rules. The clone's eyebrows twitched at these words, so he looked with a defiant expression at Gardner before saying, Very well, your rules. Gardner smiled triumphantly, and the clone spoke again. But I have my own rules. After saying this, in Naruto's right hand an intense blue flame appeared, which scared Gardner and the other crew members, who gave several steps back when seeing to the demigod getting angry. But before anyone could utter a word, the clone pointed his right palm toward the boxes and the scrolls, making them all disappear. My supplies. I decide what to do with them, and I will no longer need you to prepare me that. At least, I now know that there is also ramen in this galaxy. I'm sure that the commander will tell me where to eat when she returns. And with that said, the clone began walking toward the elevator, causing sighs of relief in everyone in the kitchen. Nevertheless, before the clone could retire, he heard someone chuckling behind him. Hee, don't you think that you're exaggerating for a simple meal? Naruto at that voice quickly turned around. It's not just any meal. It's ramen! The clone exclaimed, raising his index finger and head. Everyone looked at him with a sweat drop, seeing him standing correctly after a few seconds. Gurus could only keep laughing. Then he came closer to the clone to say, "Ha! I've never seen anyone so desperate for a meal. But well, if what they say about your age is true, then it might be understandable." Gurus replied in front of Naruto. "Tell me about it. Do you have any favorite food? Imagine going thousands of years without being able to eat it," Naruto added. Gurus brought his fingers to his chin, and then he pulled them off and nodded. "You're right, that would suck. Anyway, what are you doing here? Weren't you training or something?" Gurus asked. The clone nodded and replied, "Yes, but I'm just a clone. I decided to know the ship and her crew a little more. You know, to hang out and adapt me to all this. By the way, I will talk with Edi about some things in a few moments. If what she tells me is favorable, then I'll return to you to improve the weapons of the Normandy a bit." "What do you say? You will have many weapons to calibrate later," the clone said with a smile. Gurus nodded and replied, "That would be great, but what do you have in mind?" he asked interestedly. The clone gave a half smile and replied, "You'll see, you only need to know that the Normandy will kick ass after my improvements," he stated with a confident smile. "Well, I'm impatient to see what you have in mind. Meanwhile, I will return to my station. I'll calibrate the existing weapons. See you around." After that, Gurus gave the clone a handshake and returned to do the usual in his room. After the clone had watched him leaving, he went to the other rooms of the deck to continue memorizing the ship. He entered several rooms until he came to a specific one: the observation deck. Obviously, the deck was blocked, but he didn't care and went through the door without problems. Once inside, he approached a large window to start looking toward the infinite. What he saw in the distance made him frown in suspicion. "There they are. I can feel them," the clone thought while watching the Omega-4 mass relay in the distance. "Edia," the clone said aloud. "What do you require, Naruto-san?" she asked her rebellious crewman who was entering into the locked rooms. "I'll go to investigate something for a moment. Please tell the other clone about it. I'll be back in a few minutes," the clone said, getting closer to the room's window. Once he was close, the clone made several hand positions in a split second. After he had finished them, the clone whispered, "Kami no Shohiki, Divine Barrier." After saying that, the clone released a sigh while an invisible barrier surrounded him. "This is the trouble with being a clone. I don't have all the qualities of the original. I will immediately dissipate if I go into space without protection. It was a good idea to invent this technique." After that, the clone went through the window, successfully getting out into space. Obviously, the clone floated due to the lack of gravity, but he cared little about this or the side effects of exposure to vacuum because his barrier was more than enough to protect him from anything. He just concentrated on the relay in the distance. "It is a few million kilometers away from here. I'll see if my speed is still the same." After saying that, Naruto activated his chakra cloak, which was now red with black lines in several places of his body. The clone could use his Kemui to arrive instantly, but he wanted to see if he still had the same speed as before or if he had lost it. So after that, the clone went directly toward the mass relay, at a speed that would have left the crew open-mouthed if they had seen him. He left behind him a red line in addition to releasing a kind of whistle that only the clone could hear. In the cabin, Joker could see a red light on the panel turning on. What was that?" he asked confused, touching several buttons to try to figure out what had detected the Normandy's sensor. "That was Naruto-san. And it seems that he is going towards the Omega-4 mass relay at high speed," Edi replied, appearing on a console next to Joker, who stared at her in disbelief. "How and why is he in outer space?" Joker asked, intrigued. Edi just replied, "I am not sure. It would be best to wait for him to come back before asking the concerning questions." After that, she disappeared from the console. Joker just stared at Edi, but then he shook his head. "I wonder what else that guy can do. I want to see him in action already." After that, Joker continued his work. Returning with the clone, he had already reached his destination, stopping abruptly in front of the relay and turning off his cloak of chakra. Kurama! What my time was? The clone asked. 4 seconds, he replied with a laugh at the end. You have got rusty, Kurama stated. The clone growled as he clenched his teeth and snapped his fingers. Damn, I've really been wasting my time. Hopefully, you and the boss are recovering for the time we've lost. Kurama snorted. The time that you have lost. I've been gathering natural energy without stopping all this time. So speak for yourself, Kurama replied. The clone sighed in defeat and continued. Okay, but it's time to do what I came here for. After saying this, he looked at the huge machine before him, and he slowly floated until being within inches of the relay, a few meters away from the core. Once he was close, the clone began to examine it for a few minutes before nodding. There's no doubt, here I can feel quite a lot of the Reaper energy. They have been using this relay for hundreds of years without anyone noticing it. Though it's strange, it's the first time that I have seen a relay like this one. It doesn't give me a good feeling, the clone thought while touching the mass relay with the palm of his hand. Instantly, the clone closed his eyes as he began to gather as much information as he could from the relay. After about 10 minutes, the clone pulled his hand away, shaking his head as he moved away a few meters from it. I won't be able to pass through the relay. The boss must do it when he finishes his training. Shit, if Shepard tries to go through the relay right now, her ship would end up destroyed. Even if I'm able to put my barrier around the ship, the pressure will end up killing everyone. Maybe I could. No, it's too soon. I'll just wait for the commander. She will know what to do. I must not rush it. I have to do many things before the Reapers become aware of my presence. I must not rush the invasion. After thinking about that, the clone placed his hands on the relay again, this time, to put his Haration mark, just in case. Once he had finished his research, he returned to the ship with his Kamui. Once the clone returned to the observation deck, he was received by EDI's voice asking if everything was okay. The clone had nodded, and then he left there to register the rest of the deck number 3. He entered in Miranda's cabin before going to the infirmary. In there, Naruto struck up a pleasant conversation with Dr. Chukwas. A conversation that was slowly rising in tone due to the clone's compliments to the doctor about her great look despite her age. The conversation continued for a few more minutes, but the clone had said that he must continue exploring, but not before promising that they would have a few drinks since the doctor had invited him. After that, the clone had entered the locked room of the infirmary, surprising the doctor when seeing him going through the door like it was nothing. But she said nothing and continued her job with a smile on her face because she felt quite flattered due to the clone's compliments. The clone, after memorizing that room, went to Gurus, who had asked him what he was doing there when he saw him, and the clone replied that he was just exploring the ship. After that, he walked around the room under the watchful gaze of Gurus, who after a few minutes saw the clone nodding before saying goodbye. Therefore, he floated and passed through the ceiling of the ship. Gurus, upon seeing this, could not help but shake his head. I won't say anything about what I've just seen, Gurus thought as he tried to ignore what he had seen. So to do this, he returned his attention to the Normandy's guns to continue calibrating them. In the cockpit, Joker was checking the Normandy's controls to get everything ready once Shepard returned to the ship. I hope the commander returns already. Waiting here and doing nothing is boring, Joker murmured while pressing some buttons on the dashboard, and when he had finished saying that, he saw something yellow starting to protrude from his dashboard. Then you should go to Omega and get some female company. He heard Naruto's voice as Naruto began to emerge right where the dashboard was, scaring Joker because initially he didn't know who he was. But seeing that it was Naruto, he could not help but let out a sigh of relief. Hell, don't ever do something like that again. For a moment, I thought that someone was attacking us. Heck, how do you do that? Joker asked, hoping that Naruto would tell more of his secrets. The clone answered his question as he emerged from the dashboard before going forward slowly, passing through Joker like nothing and scaring him again. Well, I told you already. I ripped out the eyes of a bastard that caused problems in my world, and then I invented a technique to assimilate its powers. My sensei before dying also gave me his eye that coincidentally was the same as that bastard. He had given it to me to implant it and fight the Reapers. He was too old and could no longer fight them. But back then, I couldn't do that since I had different eyes. So I had to wait a few centuries before doing that. Joker, after seeing Naruto going through him, had turned his chair since he had stood behind him. You talk as if doing that wasn't anything unusual. Joker spoke, a little confused with the idea of implanting eyes to get skills. Yes, the clan of the person to whom I ripped his eyes out were specialists on it, the clone replied, shrugging. Joker just nodded as if he had understood it. Aha! Then he shook his head as he remembered what Itachi had said minutes before. Therefore, he decided to ask about it. Hey, were you that thing that the Normandy detected a few minutes ago? Joker asked, looking at him carefully. Yeah, it was me, the clone replied, shrugging again. Joker looked at him, clearly shocked. It was you? And you're already back? The Omega-4 mass relay is nearly 4 million kilometers away from our position. You couldn't possibly go there and be back so fast without a ship, and Itachi said that you were flying there at high speed, Joker expressed, looking at him in disbelief. The clone, upon hearing this, scratched his head before stopping to look through the window of the cockpit. You'll think that I'm bluffing, but I'm not. It's the truth. I don't see the need for doing it. It took me 4 seconds to get there because I had slept for so many years and because I was that long without training. I could have reached there faster, but I got rusty, and for that reason the boss is training right now, the clone answered, just to see Itachi appearing on a board next to Joker. If my calculations are correct, then you have moved at a higher speed than light. That is impressive, Itachi stated, surprising Joker even more when he heard Itachi's calculations. Naruto nodded. It could be, but as I said, I lost part of my power with my last nap. After saying that, he looked at Joker, who shook his head, leaving aside the surprising information he had heard. Therefore, he decided to ask. And what were you doing there? Did you find out anything interesting? The clone only responded. Classified information. Joker raised an eyebrow in confusion. What do you mean by classified information? Then that means that you indeed found out something interesting. Come on, tell me what it is. I won't tell anyone. I'm good at keeping secrets, Joker said, whispering and covering his mouth with his hands. Nonetheless, the clone remained firm in his position, and this made Joker say, Well, I have a higher rank than you, so there won't be any problem if you tell me, he insisted. The clone chuckled. Oh? Higher than mine? Maybe in your galaxy. But in mine, I'm still the supreme leader of the elemental nations. Joker could not help sighing in defeat. Okay. Whatever you say, but I'm sure you'll tell the commander. I'll just wait for her to return, and when you tell her what you don't want to tell me, I'll ask her. With that said, Joker turned back his chair, hearing the clone continuing. Well, I won't tell her either. At least not now. Maybe later. It's nothing personal against you. It's just that I can't reveal this information. It's something that could complicate things significantly. So I prefer to keep this secret a little longer, the clone added, seeing Joker turning his chair again. Joker at the words of Naruto nodded and left that aside, as his words seemed sincere. Okay, sorry for being so insistent. You have your secrets, and we have our own. So when you feel that you must tell the commander, do it. And the faster, the better. Believe me, when she's angry, she's scarier than 1,000 of demons. Anyway, I'll return to my stuff. After that, the conversation ended. The clone decided to continue his own. He remained in the cockpit a little longer before going to the CIC. But just as he was coming out of the cockpit, a door opened to his right. He turned his head toward there to see Shepard and her team, along with a person that Naruto could recognize as a Solarian. However, this Solarian looked quite different to the one that he saw on Omega. This one had many scars on his face. Besides, the clone could feel that he had much experience. Welcome to the Normandy, Professor Solus. Please follow me to the communications room to make you aware of the situation, the clone heard Shepard saying while he saw her pulling her helmet off her head. Once she did, Shepard shook her head to get her hair well. Once she stopped, she noticed the clone's presence. Shepard smiled slightly but then proceeded to retreat along with the professor. Her team followed her, but just as they passed by Naruto, they saw him moving toward Miranda, who, without being able to deny it, felt quite intimidated. I can feel that you are quite tense. Did the commander reprimand you or something? The clone asked with a look of interest. Shepard instantly turned to look, wanting to know what the clone was up to. Miranda just looked at him, and the clone smiled when realizing it. Hence, he bowed slightly as he raised Miranda's right hand to kiss the back of her hand before she could react. After doing that, the clone raised his head, realizing that Miranda was looking at him with a touch of disbelief. Oh, I'm just showing you that I'm not upset about what you've done, Miranda. So don't worry, I have no intention of doing anything bad to you. Only to your boss if he tries to get into matters that doesn't concern him. After that, the clone put both hands behind his back before turning around. In doing so, he realized that Shepard was looking at him with a slight touch of jealousy. But she instantly shook her head and told Morden again that they should go to the communications room. Morden had not uttered a word before, and when hearing what Shepard had said, he nodded and followed her. Along the way, Jacob intercepted them and followed them too. Once they left, Zaid could not help saying, "Hey, pretty boy," he said, referring to Naruto. The clone turned and asked, ignoring the disrespect. "What?" Zaid came closer while chuckling to stand right in front of the clone. "Is it true what Shepard said? That you gave the elusive man the shock of his life?" Miranda paid attention. She wanted to know too. "My intention was not to scare him. I just wanted to make things clear. I think that now he will no longer interfere with the goals of the commander and this galaxy," the clone replied. Zaid laughed again and continued as he left. "Well, let me know the next time you do something like that. Okay, see you around. If you want to talk, I'm on the engineering deck." The clone nodded as he watched Zaid retiring. After that, he saw that Miranda passed by, and before she could get away, the clone stood to start walking by her side. That bothered her a bit, but she remained silent as she headed to the elevator. After the elevator had returned to the deck too, she walked in as well as the clone, and this time, she could not help saying, "Mr. Naruto, do me a favor and stop following me. I have many things to do, and I don't want you bothering me. I apologize for saying something that I shouldn't have said, so you don't need to speak to me as you did before," she said, and when she finished, the elevator door opened. She entered her deck before trying to go to her cabin. However, the clone grabbed her hand. Therefore, she turned to face him. "Miranda, if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm more than willing to listen to you. Though I know you won't admit it, I can feel that you are very frustrated, and you feel quite unhappy with yourself. When I was younger, I was also like that. But with time, I accepted myself for what I was. So if you ever need someone to talk about something that bothers you, don't hesitate to call me," the clone said, placing his right hand on Miranda's shoulder. Miranda could not deny that she felt good to hear Naruto's words, but she could not help asking, "Why would you do that? You and I don't know each other at all. Besides, there is what I tried to do. What makes you want to help me? I'm sure that you would have no problem to kill me," she stated with a straight face. Upon hearing this, Naruto shook his head as he began to walk beside Miranda to her cabin. "I could do that, of course. But why should I? Death doesn't solve anything. In fact, in some cases, it can make things worse. Dialogue is always the best decision. Killing is an extreme measure only when words doesn't work anymore. Besides, you haven't done anything wrong. You only did something that you thought it was okay. I have also done such things. I have blindly followed orders from other people. So I couldn't reprimand you for doing something like that. As to why I would..." The clone paused as they reached the door of Miranda's cabin. They entered, and after that, Miranda sat behind her desk and Naruto in front of her. Therefore, Naruto continued, "As I was saying, I would do it because I was like that too, Miranda. During my childhood, I also felt inferior. I hated the others around me and myself, for having a burden that I had never asked for and because everyone despised me due to it. But over time, and thanks to people who had actually understood me, I could move forward and stop thinking in that way. I want you to feel the same way. That you understand that people are there for you. I'm sure that the commander will be there for you once you both get to know each other better. So, if you ever want to talk to me, just call me. I'm in the hangar of the ship. Anyway, I'm leaving. It was nice talking to you. After that, the clone stood up and turned around to leave the room. When he was about to cross the door, Miranda's voice stopped him. Naruto. The clone instantly turned around to hear her say, "Thank you, I'll keep what you said in mind. But now, I must write a report to the elusive man. Don't worry, I'll only report him on the mission that I just had." The clone did not see any problem with it, and then he said Miranda goodbye before heading to the elevator. After the clone had come out, he started walking toward the communications room to hear what Shepard and the others were talking about. Upon arrival, the room door opened automatically, and Shepard and the others looked at there. They saw Naruto entering the room, but they did not pay much attention to him, and Shepard continued. "As I was saying, don't kid yourself, Professor. Humans still come first in the elusive man's eyes. But this mission is too big for them to handle alone." Morden nodded, and Jacob continued. "The collectors are abducting human colonists out on the fringes of terminus space," Jacob said with a serious look, looking at Morden, who nodded again, and this time, he spoke hastily, in the classic Solarian tone. "Not simple abductions. Wouldn't need me for simple." After saying that, the professor started walking around the room with his hands behind his back. Jacob followed him with his eyes and continued. "Entire colonies disappear without a trace. No distress signals are sent out. There are no signs of any kind of attack. There is virtually no evidence that anything unusual happened at all, except that every man, woman, and child is gone." That drew Morden's attention, who began to walk faster. Gas, maybe? No. Spreads too slow. Airborne virus? No. Slower than gas. Drugged water supply? No. Effects not." And Morden stopped there since Shepard raised her hand, interrupting him. "You don't need to sit there and guess. We collected samples from one of the colonies. I'd like you to analyze them and figure out how the collectors did this," Shepard said. Morden, when hearing all this, nodded and then said, "Yes, of course. Analyze the samples. Going to need a lab?" Morden asked at the end. "There's a fully equipped laboratory on the combat deck, Professor Solis. If you find anything lacking, please place a requisition order," EDI's voice said, echoing through the intercom. That caught the professor's attention, who began to look in all directions wondering who it was. But he concluded it was an AI. Shepard confirmed his deduction, but she said that there was nothing to worry about. But Morden could not help adding, "Cerberus more desperate than I thought to use an AI instead of humans." Jacob, after hearing this, added, "The collectors have taken tens of thousands of colonists. We'll do whatever we have to do to find them and stop them." Morden nodded in comprehension. "Yes. Of course. Can't risk being captured like colonists. Need to identify, neutralize technology. Need samples. Which way to the lab?" he finally asked, speaking in a hurry as usual. Jacob, upon hearing this, went to the door. "This way, Professor," he said, motioning him with his hands to follow him. Then they went out, leaving Shepard alone in the room along with the clone, who had remained silent throughout the conversation. But he decided to speak once Shepard gave a tired sigh. "Are you okay?" he asked, approaching to the table of the room. Shepard nodded as she rubbed her neck. "Yeah, just a little tired. Those Krogans. There were several of them on my last mission," she said, stopping rubbing her neck before placing both hands on the table. The clone smiled and said, "Well, you've kicked their asses. Though you keep surprising me. You have an admirable sense of honor, and I can say with certainty that your word is worth a lot," the clone stated, looking at Shepard, who looked at him in confusion. "What do you mean?" she asked with a questioning face. The clone leaned up against the room's wall and answered. "That moment when you found the assistant of the Professor Solis with the Batarians, and promised them that you wouldn't do anything to them. Many would have done otherwise. I'm sure of it," the clone stated. Did you read my mind again, Mr. I read your mind without permission?" Shepard asked with a look of reproach, but with a small smile though. The clone realized what he had done, so he looked at the ceiling as he scratched his right cheek with his index finger. "Well, I wanted to know how your mission was. I didn't mean it," he apologized, now scratching his head and with an apologetic smile on his face. Shepard could not help laughing slightly when seeing the clone in that way, but then she waved her hands and said that he had nothing to worry about. After that, she decided to ask, "So, what's up? I thought you'd be with your original so that nothing bad happens to us." The clone smiled and replied, "Well, I got bored, and I decided to explore the ship. Besides, my other clone is with the boss. So there is nothing to worry about." After that, the clone stopped smiling and put a straight face, and Shepard realized that he was about to say something important. "Shepard, I would like to discuss something important with you," the clone requested, pulling away from the wall to start walking around the room with his hands behind his back. The clone nodded and continued, knowing that what he was about to say could negatively affect his mission. "I just want to tell you something, but I hope that you don't discuss my reasons." The clone paused for a moment, watching Shepard nodding, and then he continued, "I know where the collectors are and how to reach them. But I can't give you the answers at this time." Shepard opened her eyes at the statement, but she remained in her place. "Why can't you tell me? If you know how to reach them, then we should do it now since they won't expect it," Shepard asked, looking at the clone, who sighed and answered, "We could do it, Shepard. But I don't want to rush the Reaper invasion. If they know that I'm here, then the invasion would immediately begin, or they would do something worse. That's something we can't let happen. Time is money right now, and if we hurry, the losses would be catastrophic. First, I have to prepare everyone. I must teach them how to fight a Reaper. I must show them how they operate, but in particular, I must train them," the clone replied seriously. That caught Shepard's attention considerably. "Train us? How? You said we don't have that chakra that you use, so how can we do the things that you do?" she asked while seeing him walking across the room. The clone moved closer to her to say, "Chakra isn't necessary for some things. You just need toughness and the correct predisposition. That's more than enough," the clone replied. Shepard, upon hearing this, scratched her right cheek as she looked away. "And who will you train?" she asked without looking at him yet, making the same gesture that Naruto had done moments before. The clone noticed it, and could not help smiling, but then he answered, "Well, principally you. After that, I will talk to the representative people of this galaxy, and convince them to create several squads that will be under my command. I believe that I'll have in 2 or 3 years several squadrons that will provide a substantial increase in the potential of the forces of this galaxy. But for this, I'll need your help when it comes talking to the Council. I don't want to get aggressive when I make my goals clear. But I warn you that I won't take a no for an answer from those people. I'll do whatever it takes for them to cooperate, even if I have to force them to do it against their will." He said the latter with a very serious face that didn't show the slightest indication that he was lying. Shepard smiled and nodded. "Well, don't worry, get aggressive with those bastards if you want. I won't stop you," Shepard replied with a smile. The clone smiled just to hear Shepard speaking again. "And how would you train me? What do you have in mind?" she asked interestedly, denying that she was intrigued would be an understatement. After all, being able to do even one of the things that Naruto was able to do was an idea that attracted her greatly. The clone at this put his right hand inside his robe, and then he extracted a green scroll. He opened it, and charged a bit of his chakra into it, thus extracting some weights of the scroll. Shepard raised an eyebrow at the weights, but she said nothing since the clone approached her. "Tell me, Commander, what do you think of the idea of moving at a nearly sonic speed or even higher?" the clone asked. Shepard blinked a few times at the question, but she continued since she could tell that the clone was talking seriously. "PFF. Well, that would be awesome. But do you want to tell me that I'll be able to have that speed if I use those things?" she asked, pointing at the 4 weights that were in the hands of Naruto. They were not very big, but Shepard concluded they were weights due to their shape. They were black, and they also had some red kanjis. The clone nodded at Shepard's question. "Yes, they are very particular weights. But don't think that with only wearing them you'll have that speed. You'll need a minimum of 2 years of arduous training without stopping using them. So, do you want to try?" the clone asked. Shepard nodded, and the clone spoke again. "Very well, Go and take your armor off and then go to the ship's hangar. I'll equip you there, and when we arrive at the Citadel, we'll start with your training. Let me warn you that it will be very intense." Shepard nodded but replied, "Okay. But before we start, I plan to go somewhere else. I want to go where the old Normandy crashed. I owe it to my former crew and their families," Shepard said with a bit of a pain in her words. The clone upon hearing this nodded. "I understand. You want me to accompany you?" he asked softly, stepping further to face her. Shepard shook her head and answered, "No, it's fine. I would like to go there alone." The clone nodded again. "Okay, Shepard, see you in the hangar. Meanwhile, I'll continue exploring the ship, and in the process, I'll introduce myself to the new crew member. Good luck and cheer up," the clone added, patting Shepard's shoulder. "Thank you, Naruto," she said, raising her head to meet his eyes. They both stared at each other for a long moment, as if there were nothing more interesting than that. But before anything could happen, the clone turned around and started walking toward the door. Shepard could realize only now what they had done. Nonetheless, when she realized that Naruto was leaving, she let out a small sigh as she shrugged her shoulders slightly. After that, she heard the clone saying, "See you, Shepard. Good luck when you get to that place and don't be sad. You're too beautiful to be like this." The clone turned around, smiling and lifting his thumb to Shepard, who smiled slightly and then walked to the clone, thanking him for his words. After a few seconds, they both left the room while Shepard walked toward the CIC. Once there, she heard Kelly saying that she had a new message at her private terminal, but Shepard decided to check it later. So then, she set course to the Armada system, the place where the old Normandy had been attacked and destroyed a few years ago. When Joker got the new coordinates, he set off after having filled the fuel tanks of the Normandy, and the clone, upon realizing all this, continued with his exploration of the ship before introducing himself to Mordin Solus. The next day. Another day had passed when they had recruited Mordin Solus. Right now, the Normandy was heading to the nearest mass relay that would lead them to the Citadel. The reason they were late was because Shepard had taken her time to visit the site where the old Normandy had crashed. Therefore, everyone had waited for the commander until she decided it was time to leave. She spent several hours there, but nobody had accompanied her as they knew she wanted to be there alone. On that day, Naruto's clone had already memorized everything inside and outside the ship, even the smallest scratches that were on the windows. But he had not dissipated since the information's burden would have disturbed the concentration of the original, and that could have caused an accident on the ship. He had also talked to Mordin, who upon learning about Naruto's skills was quite interested in taking a few samples. But he could not get anything because the clone had not allowed him due to various reasons, but the main one was because he could not take much damage or he could dissipate. Hence, Mordin had no choice but to stop insisting and continue his research of the countermeasures for the paralyzing seeker swarms of the collectors. Naruto at that time had not yet spoken to EDI on the improvements that he wanted to implement, as he had not found the time to do it. Therefore, he had decided to save it for later, maybe when he started training with Shepard. After several hours, Shepard had returned. She now felt better since she had taken a burden off her shoulders. Afterward, she had instructed to put a monument there and send the nameplates of the missing crew members to their relatives. Then she went to sleep because she was tired. When she woke up, she decided it would be best to go to the Citadel. For this, Shepard went to trace the course in the galaxy map. Once she did that, she went to talk with her crew while Joker headed towards the Citadel. She did it because since her mission had started, she had spent more of her time with Naruto, and Shepard had been unable to speak with the rest of her crew as she should have. Even though she did not dislike talking with Naruto, she did not want to put her team aside. Therefore, she decided to use the free time as they headed to the Citadel. After a few hours of talking with her crew, Joker had said they were to pass through the relay that would lead them to the Citadel. Thus, Shepard went to get her armor to her cabin, but not before telling her crew that they could rest at the Citadel if they wished it, and she had decided to bring 2 people to accompany her. One of those people had been Gurus while the other one had obviously been Naruto. For this, Shepard had to go to the hangar of the ship to let him know. Once she arrived at the hangar, she walked around the place for a while before reaching the place where Naruto and his clones were. There she realized that both clones were staring at the original, who was still floating and surrounded by the purple domed barrier. The clones were aware of Shepard's presence, but they said nothing. They just continued watching the original, which made Shepard curious. "Why are you looking at him like that?" she asked as she stood beside them. The clone on the left replied, "The boss is about to finish his training. He'll be back in a few seconds." And the other one added, "I wonder how long they were training." The latter confused Shepard because she did not understand what he meant. After all, the original had just started training the day before. So the words of the clone had confused her a bit. But she just remained silent, waiting for Naruto until his training ended, watching him carefully. In another dimension, in an area that had at one time been mountainous, which devoid of vegetation or any sign of life, stood three people. One of them was Naruto, standing in an open area, with folded hands and smiling while looking skyward. Up there were Kurama and Red. They were being attracted towards an enormous ball of a few thousand kilometers in diameter that had been created by several of the mountains that were now high in the sky. Kurama, realizing the situation, shouted, "Grr! Red, we must destroy that damn thing or it'll be our end!" Kurama exclaimed as he floated against his will towards the great group of rocks in the sky. It was, at least 3 times the size of the moon of Naruto's planet. Naruto was still on land with his palms clasped as he continued increasing the size of his Chibaku Tensei. "Hi, Kurama-sama!" Red exclaimed as he crossed his fingers. "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu!" Red and Kurama yelled while creating one shadow clone each of them. Instantly, the clone of Red positioned itself above the head of Kurama's clone while the original did the same, but above the original Kurama. Naruto from the ground then saw that they started creating 2 giant chakra balls that began to grow and grow until it reached a size that impressed Naruto. "I didn't know that Red could help Kurama in making a Baijidama," Naruto thought, impressed, seeing them adding more chakra to the balls. In the end, Naruto chuckled. "Guys, that won't be enough to destroy it," Naruto exclaimed so they could hear him. Red and Kurama could hear him clearly, but they just continued adding more chakra while getting closer and closer to the ball of rocks in the sky. "Although they won't destroy it, I should take cover or I might regret it," Naruto thought as he saw them a few meters away from his Chibaku Tensei. In the air, Kurama and Red decided they should stop adding chakra to continue their plan. Red asked, "Are you ready, Kurama-sama?" Kurama smiled slightly as he nodded. "Now!" The 4 of them exclaimed while turning around to throw the Baijidamas at full speed towards Naruto, who could only think, "Sure." After that, there was a powerful explosion, one that shook the entire dimension while lifting a huge curtain of dust that rose up several hundred meters. Red and Kurama had to cover themselves because the blast had reached even where they were, but that mattered little to them because they could now move freely. And the best thing was that Naruto's Chibaku Tensei began to break itself, while giant pieces of rocks fell hurtling towards land. Once the pieces made landfall, they shook the ground as if large earthquakes were occurring simultaneously. Kurama and Red had to dodge them as they fell, trying not to end up crushed by the huge rocks. After a few seconds they landed. Kurama had to cover his eyes a little bit because the dust had not yet settled down, and Red had no problem as he had no face. They just waited patiently since they both knew that their last attack would not kill Naruto because he was immortal. After several minutes, the dust began to settle down, slowly revealing Naruto, who was sitting on the ground with a smile as he seemed to be regenerating part of his body. Kurama and Red smiled as they approached him while Kurama decreased his size considerably. Once closer, they both looked at Naruto, who decided to speak. "You both tricked me. I didn't know you were planning something like that. I didn't even have time to use Kemui. It certainly took me off guard," Naruto stated with a smile as he looked at their eyes. Kurama spoke next. "I think your personality has rubbed off on me a little bit. Being within you for so many years took its toll," Kurama added, also smiling. Naruto chuckled at that, but then he stood up while shaking his tattered garments. "Well, it was an excellent training. Now I feel I've regained my power. I even think that I'm a bit stronger now. But I think it's time to return, guys. It's been a year since we started training, so we should return. Naruto said, cracking his neck and his back because he felt sore after receiving the last attack. Kurama and Red noticed it, but they didn't care as they had done much more damage to Naruto during the training. So they were satisfied for quite some time ago. After that, Kurama did not wait a second and re-entered in Naruto's body, making him fall to his knees due to the sudden increase in chakra he had felt. However, he returned to his feet, shaking his head. You can go back, Red. I'll let you know when I'll need your help, Naruto expressed, and after that, Red nodded and faded away as he wished good luck to his master. Naruto then joined his fingers and also faded away from there. Normandy's hangar. Only a few seconds had passed since the moment the clones had said that the original would return, so Shepard had only stared at the original as well as the clones that smiled after a moment and dissipated themselves in puffs of smoke without saying a word. Suddenly, she felt a similar feeling to when she was with the Shinigami or when she saw Kurama for the first time, but this feeling was not a scary or intimidating one. It felt as if a powerful presence had suddenly appeared before her. She knew it was Naruto, but she did not understand why she could felt it so suddenly. However, she continued observing while seeing the barrier around Naruto disappearing as he stopped floating until touching the floor of the ship. After that, she saw that he slowly opened his eyes while starting to stand up. Once he did so, Shepard saw him stretching himself a little bit before saying, "Good morning, Shepard. It's been a while." Shepard raised an eyebrow in confusion. "It's been just a day," she replied. "Maybe for you. But I was training for a whole year in a special dimension that I created to train after my naps," Naruto answered, now stretching his arms. Shepard was not very surprised. After all, she already had an idea of what Naruto could do and what he had said was not too far-fetched. "Ah, I see. That explains why I felt as if you had suddenly appeared on the ship," she added. Naruto nodded and continued. "Yes, I decided to take my consciousness with me and leave my body here on the ship. Anyway, it's not as if a year is a much time for me. After all, I already told you that the years passes in a heartbeat for me. It's a matter of perception." Shepard nodded before asking, "Are you aware of everything that has happened while you weren't here?" Naruto nodded instantly. "Yes, thanks to my clones. When they dissipate, their experiences and memories return to me. So I'm aware of everything. You don't need to tell me anything." Shepard nodded in understanding and continued. "Well, that's fine. Anyway, I came here to tell you that we're about to reach the Citadel, and I would like you to accompany me to speak to the Council. After that, we can start my training," she said with a smile. Naruto smiled back and replied, "Well, I like to hear that. But I have a request to make, Commander." Shepard nodded and told him to continue, so Naruto smiled and continued. "Well, I was wondering if you can train me too. I want to learn how to use your weapons." Hearing Naruto's request, Shepard could not help smiling. Therefore, she nodded and replied, "Well, it'll be a pleasure, Cadet," she said jokingly. Naruto felt a little discouraged by the rank that Shepard had given him, but then he smiled and replied, "If I am a cadet, then you'll be a genin," he stated, sticking his tongue out. "Genin?" she asked, confused. Naruto smiled as he briefly explained Shepard about the system of ranks that previously ruled in the elemental nations as they both walked towards the elevator. Shepard could not help laughing a few times when hearing the kind of missions that these genin took, but she had not cared that Naruto has given her that rank. After all, she knew it was just a joke as she had done it before. They reached the deck number 2, and there they headed towards the exit gate of the Normandy, the place where Gurus was already waiting for them, leaning back against the wall. When seeing them approaching together, he smiled even more as he noticed that they both were talking and laughing. Hence, he got away from the wall to say, "Well, whenever I have the opportunity to see one of you, most often I see you together. Anyone would think that there's something between you two," he stated with a desire to embarrass them a little bit. Shepard and Naruto looked at each other for a few seconds, they both smiled, and then they looked at Gurus, ignoring his attempt to make them feel uncomfortable. It was not as if they had not talked about it before. Shepard was the one who spoke this time. I have to spend time with my cadet so that he doesn't get lost or get too scared to all of this that is new for him. You know, a superior should always take care of their subordinates, she said, chuckling. That made Naruto's eyebrows twitch. Hey, I'm not a child. You should respect your elders, he replied with a pout. Now Geras laughed as he followed Shepard and Naruto to the exit gate. Once there, the door opened, and the three entered the landing dock. Shepard went to the front, while the other two followed her from behind. Shepard walked to the rapid transit. They all boarded one and then it flew to the level 27 of Sakura. During the trip, Shepard and Geras saw Naruto changing his clothes. Shepard was not surprised, but Geras was and could not help asking about how he did it. In the course of the short trip, Naruto explained it to him, and after a few minutes, the shuttle reached Sakura. Everyone got out and walked forward. There, Naruto saw several alien species, but one of them caught his eye. He could only describe it as a jellyfish. He knew their race was the Harem, but still, seeing one of them for the first time had been very striking for him. He could also see a kind of green spider that was at the corner of the room using a console. Naruto did not know much about them since no one of the people he had had contact with until now had much information about them. All he knew was that they called them keepers. Therefore, Naruto thought of finding out a little more about them later. Thus, he just looked back at the front, realizing that Shepard and Geras were looking at him. Ready? Shepard asked. Naruto smiled and replied. Sorry, this is new to me. I couldn't help getting distracted. Don't worry, I understand, Shepard added, and then she turned around to walk forward, followed by the men of her team. As they walked, they could hear a woman's voice saying, Got problem with collectors? Try Kasumi's credit services. Instantly, they all looked to where the voice came from, and there they saw an advertisement in which someone with a black hood was giving them her back. Shepard went over there, and when facing the advertisement, it blinked for a moment before revealing a hooded woman. Please tell me your password, Commander Shepard, the woman of the advertisement requested. Naruto did not detect any malicious intent from the woman in the advertisement, but he was stealthily looking up, the place where the woman was controlling the advertisement with her Omni tool. Shepard, hearing her petition, answered, Silence is golden. Kasumi smiled and continued, Good to finally meet you, Commander Shepard. Kasumi, go to. I'm a fan. Shepard nodded and continued, Has Cerberus filled you in on the mission? Shepard asked. Kasumi nodded. Honestly, I'm shocked they didn't come to see me sooner. My fault for being so hard to find, I guess, she replied with a chuckle. Shepard then decided to change the subject. What's with the password and the sneaking around? Are you in trouble or something? Kasumi shook her head and then replied, I'm the best thief in the business, not the most famous. Need to watch my step to keep it that way. I also needed to make sure all this was legit. And I have no doubts now you're the real Commander Shepard, Kasumi stated. Shepard nodded and asked one last question. What brought you to Cerberus? That's a bit of a story. Short version, they were looking for me, so I trailed them to find out why. Turns out they were looking for someone to join you on an important mission, and were offering a serious signing bonus. I had a thing I needed help with, so I made them a deal. And here we are. The latter made Shepard raise an eyebrow in intrigue and say, I assume this deal is something I should know about. Kasumi sighed. Yeah, I guess it slipped their minds. I'm looking for my old partner's gray box. A man named Donovan Hawk took it, and I'm planning to get it back. Shepard nodded. If that's what Cerberus promised you, we'll get it done. Kasumi smiled and added, It'll be fun. And if we're lucky, you won't even have to draw your gun. After saying that, Kasumi made the ad disappear and approached the edge of the floor of the upper position where she was watching Shepard and the others. Everyone looked up there to hear her saying, We should probably wrap this up. You look pretty silly standing there talking to an advertisement. See you on the ship, Shepard. And with that said, she turned around and began to retreat without waiting for any other response from Shepard. After that, Shepard looked back towards the reception to hear Naruto say, Wow, that woman is hot. I can't wait to get to know her more, hee hee. Naruto stated, which naturally annoyed Shepard, though he did not intend to do it. Nevertheless, Shepard had remained silent to walk forward, hearing Geras speaking. I thought it might be nice to come back here and see how it's changed. But it's just like it was. Same dirty streets, same unrepentant scavengers, same revolving doors prisons. Being security here is a terrible job. This is exactly why I left. Geras said, walking slowly. Well, now I know where I shouldn't go to earn some money, Naruto added, and Geras chuckled. After that, no one spoke again, since Shepard had stopped right in front of the reception to talk to the woman who was there. Geras and Naruto heard her asking about the enhanced security at the Citadel, and the woman had replied that they were forced to increase security throughout the Citadel after the Geth attack to be better prepared for possible further attacks. After that, Shepard thanked her for the answer and went to the gates that lead to the CCC station. When they were in front of it, it automatically opened, so everyone went in except for Naruto, which Shepard could see. What's going on? She asked. Naruto looked at her as he scratched his head. I think it would be better if I don't walk this way. This room has many identifying sensors. And as I'm not from this galaxy, then I would be delaying you. So see you when you pass this way. But before he could leave, Shepard stopped him, saying, Wait, we can solve that. Just come in and then we'll talk to whoever is in charge. Naruto stared at her for a moment, then nodded and walked into the hallway as the others. Instantly, Naruto could feel that multiple scanners began to analyze him. He blocked some of its functions while he let the others analyze him without problems. Naruto wanted to keep some things as a secret, for example, the composition of his body. He was sure that these sensors could detect his chakra channels, and that was something he did not want to reveal. He continued walking through the hall until seeing a Turian CCC officer. There, the Turian made them a final analysis that resulted in an alarm that rang for a while. Shut it down, the Turian said on his communicator, because he believed that the analyzer had suffered a failure, but when hearing the answer on the communicator, he could not help saying, What, do you seriously think? Yeah, okay. After that, he cut off communication to look at Shepard. Sorry for the inconvenience, ma'am. Our scanners are picking up false readings. They seem to think you're dead. The Turian spoke as he pressed several buttons on his console. I was only mostly dead. Try finding that option on government paperwork, Shepard replied. The Turian chuckled and replied, Heh. We need to get that cleared up for you. Why don't you talk to my captain? He's just beyond the scanners on the right. And take your human friend with you, we have no records of him, and he should be registered to avoid problems. Shepard nodded, and the gate in front of her opened. Everyone continued forward before turning to the right to talk to Captain Bailey, who upon seeing them approaching stopped talking to the woman who was in his office. Afterward he looked at Shepard, who had stood before him. Therefore, Bailey decided to speak. Yes, I see the problem already, Commander Shepard. My console says you're dead. Your sergeant said you could help with that. She spoke, taking a step forward. Bailey nodded and replied, Usually, you'd have to go through the station's security administration to reactivate your IDs. Then to customs and immigration to regain access to the Citadel itself. And probably a stop by the Treasury. Spending a year dead is a popular tax dodge, Bailey stated. Obviously, Shepard looked at him with an "Are you serious?" expression. Although he could not see it due to her helmet, Bailey noticed it because of the position of her arms. Thus, he quickly added, But I can see you're a busy woman. So how about I just press this button right here, and we call it done? He asked as he leaned slightly to press a button under his desk. Shepard at this smiled and nodded. That'd be great. Bailey did not need anything else, and after that, he wrote some things on his console. After a few seconds, he stopped writing and looked with a smile at Shepard. Done. You're good to go. Shepard nodded, but Bailey spoke again. However, you should head up to the Presidium. The Council would probably like to know that one of their lost specters is still kicking, Bailey stated. Shepard nodded and replied, I will. Having access to the Council and the Spectre's resources would be useful, besides, she said, the latter looking at Naruto, who was behind. Forget it. Shepard continued, shaking her head. Bailey nodded and spoke again. As for your friend, tell him to get closer so I can register him too. Upon hearing this, Shepard motioned for Naruto to approach, which he did. Once Naruto was facing Bailey, he looked at him and said, Very well, as I know you are busy people, I'll spare you all the bureaucracy. So I just need your full name, current place of residence, country of origin or home colony, blood type, date of birth, name of any of your family whom we can contact with, plus their phone numbers and yours. I think that would be more than enough, Bailey stated as he returned his attention to his console to record Naruto's data, who had a nervous smile on his face. Well, I don't think I can answer some of your questions. Can I give false information? Naruto asked. Bailey looked at him and replied, I don't think that's possible unless. Then he looked at Shepard, and Naruto as well. Realizing this, Shepard nodded. Yes, you can, with Spectre's permission. Although I still have to go there so they can reinstate me as one, I don't think it'll be a problem. Bailey did not need to hear any more, and then he told Naruto to get closer to provide the information. But before that, Naruto asked again. Could I change this information in the future? Of course, it wouldn't take long. Well, as long as you're with the Commander Shepard, it wouldn't be a problem, Bailey replied. Naruto at this looked back at Shepard. He smiled and then nodded. I will never leave her, he stated. Shepard blushed slightly, but no one could see it because of her helmet. Even though Naruto had not said that in the sense that Shepard had thought, she did not care much. However, after a few seconds, Naruto asked Shepard's help to complete some points since he needed help to complete them, such as the name of a human colony. Although Naruto could get that information just by reading someone's mind, he had decided to stop using that ability for the moment, since he had learned from Shepard that he should not abuse that ability at every opportunity. After a few minutes, Naruto stepped away from Bailey, who nodded after obtaining all his information, then said, Very well, sir. Menma Namikaze, you can now access into the public spaces of the Citadel without inconveniences, Bailey stated, making Naruto smile. After that, Bailey looked back at Shepard. Anyway, something else you need? Or can I get back to work? He asked. Shepard nodded and replied, I should be going. You need anything else, let me know, Bailey added, and after that, he returned to his own business while Shepard and her team left the station. As they walked to the council, Shepard spoke. Menma Namikaze? And why that name? She asked as they walked out the station. Well, I should choose a name that the Reapers were not familiar with to avoid them knowing that Naruto Uzumaki entered the Citadel. They were already here before, so it wouldn't surprise me if they have the data of everyone who enters this place, he answered. He made a short pause while everyone stopped as they wanted to hear what he had to say, and then Naruto continued. Namikaze is the surname of my father. I had never used it. Not because I didn't like it, but because my whole life I used the surname of my mother. My father was very powerful and influential in my world. But he also had many enemies, and since my parents died when I was a baby, to prevent their enemies from attacking me, the authorities in my village only gave me the surname of my mother. And Menma? Because it's the ingredient I hate the most in the ramen. So I think they won't believe that I'm using the name of something I don't like. He finished with a smile. Shepard and Gurus nodded and turned around to walk forward, hearing Naruto speaking again. By the way, Shepard, do you know where I can eat some ramen in this place? He asked, almost pleading. Shepard looked at him for a moment, then she shook her head. No, I don't know. But you could ask her, she answered, pointing to a 6, virtual intelligence, shaped as an asari that was near the protective fence of the level where they were. When Naruto heard what Shepard had said, he had felt quite discouraged because he had thought he would not get any information. However, when she had said he could ask the 6, he had felt reanimated. Therefore, Shepard stepped aside so that Naruto could talk to the 6, and he had gladly approached since it seemed that she could tell him where to eat his favorite food. Naruto approached her with a smile and saying, Good morning, Avina. Naruto greeted the 6 by her name. He already knew it since Shepard had requested information from another of these 6 in the past. Welcome to the Sakura Ward, Menma Namikaze. I welcome you to your first visit to the Citadel. This is the Sakura Ward Transportation Hub. Public shuttles and shopping are available through the CCC's security cordon, Avina reported. Naruto cleared his throat. Ahem, I was wondering if you know where I can go and eat some ramen. I would be very grateful if you could give me information about that. A few months ago, a man from planet Earth came to establish a stand of Japanese food to the Citadel. Among his dishes, the ramen is included. His location is in the Sakura Market District, a level below your current position, Avina informed, which made Naruto almost cry in happiness. However, Naruto just nodded. Thank you. If you had feelings, I would already be thanking you in a very special way. But I think it's time to leave, he stated. That annoyed Shepherd, and Gurus chuckled as he could understand very well what Naruto meant, and Avina quietly said, Thank you for using Avina. Have a pleasant day. After that, Naruto gave a swing to look at Shepherd. At last! What do you say, Shepherd? Would you accompany me to eat some ramen? Naruto asked, extending his hand to Shepherd, who stared at him before answering. No, she answered flatly. Hearing her answer, Naruto was about to ask why, since he could hear she was a bit angry. But he did not, because Shepherd started walking forward again, heading for the rapid transit in that area. Haha, looks like I screwed up, Naruto stated, laughing as he scratched his head and looked Shepherd getting away, who could not hear what Naruto had said. Gurus smiled and added as he approached Naruto. If I were you, I'd try not to make Shepherd angry. You haven't seen her when she gets angry. Let me tell you, she can be really scary, Gurus stated as he followed Shepherd. Naruto smiled again and started walking towards the rapid transit, where Shepherd was already waiting for them. Once Shepherd saw both of them, without saying anything, she boarded the X3M shuttle. Naruto and Gurus did the same. Shepherd sat where the wheel was, and Gurus tried to sit next to her, but before he could, Naruto placed a hand on his shoulder, which stopped him. Therefore, Gurus looked back only to see Naruto passing to sit next to Shepherd. I see, Gurus thought with a smile, and then he sat in the back. Shepherd had not even turned when Naruto sat beside her. She just waited until everyone boarded and then she drove the shuttle off. After a few moments that the sky car had taken flight, Naruto could not help looking outward, astonished due to what he was seeing. The Citadel was incredible, especially all the movement that he could from his place, especially from the airspace. There were hundreds of vessels of all kinds flying around. Each of them was going somewhere on the massive space station that the Citadel was. Shepherd and Gurus could see Naruto looking out the windows as he occasionally showed a surprised expression. They both smiled, and Shepherd could not help saying, It's strange to see you, of all people, getting surprised by something. When Naruto heard Shepherd speaking, he stopped watching the Citadel before lying down in his seat to answer with a smile. Well, technology is something that I like a lot, and I must admit that the Citadel is incredible. Even though we are currently very technologically advanced in my world, I don't meddle in such things because I'm sleeping or because I don't want to bother my sons. Gurus and Shepherd raised an eyebrow at this, but since Gurus had no idea how Naruto's world was, Shepherd spoke. How advanced are they? She asked, forgetting that a few minutes ago she was angry with Naruto. It was quite difficult for her to stay mad at him. Naruto, at this, answered, Well, I don't know. I would say a lot. After all, the civilization that I created on my world has had several thousand years, much more than any one of those in your galaxy has had. Moreover, the first ones of my sons that I created shared my knowledge and most of my memories. So I'm sure that many of them have taken advantage of this knowledge to invent things that could help me on my mission. Shepherd nodded at this, but this time, Gurus decided to ask. Although I don't know much about what you are talking about, what is it that stopped you from seeing what your sons have achieved so far? Naruto turned his head and replied. As I told you, I spent a lot of time sleeping, and sometimes I had to make preparations to attract people to my world. They weren't short and simple preparations. They required a long time, especially not to alert the Reapers. Do you know how hard can it be to place a mass relay in an unknown place? Gurus nodded and decided not to ask anymore since he could clearly understand what he meant. Nevertheless, Shepard spoke again. Do you think you could ask for their help when the war starts? Naruto smiled and replied. Of course, that was the reason they were improving all this time. It's good to hear that. Now we just have to convince the council to help us so we can prepare everyone for the invasion. Shepard added, smiling. Naruto did as well, but after that, he looked at Shepard. And what do you say now, Shepard? Would you go and eat some ramen with me after talking to the council? When Shepard heard this, she gripped the steering wheel of the skycar tightly. Okay, but only if things go well on the council. She answered, turning her head to look at Naruto, who was smiling and making a victory sign with his fingers at her. I promise you that you won't regret it, Commander, he stated, referring to the ramen. Shepard, on the other hand, thought he meant to the date. But she said nothing about it, and just remained silent until reaching the Presidium, while Gurus and Naruto started talking for a while, especially about Naruto's sons, and he had to explain to him what he meant. After a few minutes of conversation, both men realized that Shepard had landed the X-3M, and after that, they all went down. Naruto noticed that the gravity here was quite a bit lower. However, he said nothing about it as it didn't surprise him, nor did the gardens of the Presidium, since for him his world looked nicer. He just followed Shepard to the embassies of the Presidium without saying anything. Everyone headed for the office of Counselor Anderson. Once there, the office door automatically opened, and they heard a man's voice saying, Shepard will be here any ... Instantly, Anderson, who was the man who had said this, had turned around to look at the entrance, and smiled when seeing Shepard approaching. Therefore, he continued, Oh, Commander! We were just talking about you, Anderson stated, looking at Shepard, who had taken her helmet off to leave it on a table in the office. Shepard, when hearing Anderson, shook hands with him while saying, It's been a long time, Anderson. I hope the last couple years have treated you right. Anderson smiled and replied, There've been some rough spots. It's good to have you back, he expressed, getting a nod from Shepard. Just then everyone could hear another voice in the room, a male one. We've heard many rumors surrounding your unexpected return. Some of them are unsettling. Shepard turned to the right, and there she could see the other 3 council members as holograms near the wall, the one who had said that was the Solarian counselor. Then the Asari counselor continued, We called this meeting so you could explain your actions, Shepard. We owe you that much. After all, you saved our lives in the battle against Saren and his Geth, she stated with a bit of respect in her words. After hearing that, Shepard glanced at Naruto, who was also watching the counselors. Then Shepard continued, The Collectors are abducting human colonists in the Terminus systems. Worse, they work for the Reapers, she stated bluntly. That apparently caught the attention of the council members, but the Turian counselor could not help saying, The Terminus systems are beyond our jurisdiction. Your colonists knew this when they left council space. Nonetheless, Anderson decided to remind him Shepard's words. You're missing the most important part, counselor. The Reapers are involved. The Turian counselor snorted and sarcastically replied while making quotation marks with his fingers. Ah, yes. Reapers. The immortal race of sentient starships allegedly waiting in dark space. We have dismissed that claim, he replied in a mocking tone, but finishing with a quite serious face. Anderson turned around to look at her, but before he could say anything, Shepard held up a hand to stop him. Chapter end.
Now watch daily exclusive and censored lemon stories and mature content, along with NSFW images, featuring Harem girls characters from the fics. Access all this and more on my Patreon. Click the link in the description to explore.